Hey, what is up guys, I'm Exteria, and in this video, I'm gonna teach you guys how to play the easy vertical comps more efficiently. The reason why this is important is because we don't have any stats currently on what is meta. So I'm gonna give you guys the information so you can accelerate your gameplay and improve on what I'm going to show you guys. The first comp we're gonna start with is the crew. This is one of the easiest reroll comps we can ever play to almost exist. There has been easier reroll comps in the past, like Hellion reroll or Yordle reroll, because you get free units. Essentially, this is similar to that Yordle comp that I mentioned because the synergy itself allows you to gain unit. What I mean by that is every time you 3-star a unit, the synergy itself allows you to gain certain perks. So if you have one 3-star, then that means that you get 1 XP per reroll. But you might be saying, if we keep getting XP and level up, that means our 1 cost and 2 cost percentages will be lower. But the thing about it is, the crew synergy allows you to gain crew members no matter what, because the crew unit odds never drop. So say you're level 5, and technically your 1 cost percentage is supposed to be low, but because of this synergy, it allows you to find those 1 cost units pretty easily. And then once you get 2 3-star crew units, then you gain plus 1 free reroll per round as well. And that means you gain more XP because you're getting free rerolls. And then once you get 3 stars, the synergy itself shoots out a rocket that does damage. And this is kind of important because the rockets itself do magical damage. So it's basically like Boombot from last set. So try to have at least a Void Staff or an Onyx Spark on the board. So the synergy itself does a lot of damage. And if you have 4 3-star units, then the rockets just do more damage depending on what level you are currently. And then this is probably never going to happen, but if you somehow manage to get TF3 because these are 5 cost units, if you manage to get 5 3-star units, then you just basically win the game because it just ends it for you. Going back to playing the board of the crew, this is how you play the full board. You play it with all the crew units and strategist. Main reason why you use a lot of strategist units is because Janna is both protector and she is a strategist, which is really good because Ziggs is a strategist unit, so you gain synergies with that, and Malphite is also a protector, so you get 2 units synergies with Janna, and J4 is also a really good tank, and he stuns as well. So this helps your board last a little bit longer. And Rise is just a good +1 unit because he's a mentor. So this means that his mentor will give your whole board a little bit more mana so they can keep casting. And then when you hit level 9, you can look for a Braum so you can get that Bastion on the board. Tip here I can give is if you have a Gargoyle Stoneplate on Malphite instead, then you could just like solo position him. So you can take out like the Steadfast Heart or Sunfire, whichever one you want, and just put Gargoyle Stoneplate on him and position like this would be better in the long run, since he's just an unstoppable force. In order to play the early game, you would want to play a Malphite and a Sivir, and you would want one of them at least level 2, like either Sivir 2 or Malphite 2, and you have like an extra pair for one or the other. This kind of indicates that you can 3-star them pretty easily, or if you high roll maybe like 5 or 4 copies of one of them, that's also a really good indicator as well. And if you want to win streak, you should slam either Winsu's Rage Blade, either a Shojin, or an IE, or even a Kraken on Sivir is pretty good as well for first item slam if you want to win streak. But choose one or the other of Winsu's Rage Blade and a Shojin because this helps her cast her ability more often. I prefer Winsu's Rage Blade. Shojin might be better, but we don't have stats on it which one's better at the moment. The trick would be like if you are playing sniper early game with Sivir, for example like a Gnar, then Winsu's Rage Blade would be better because snipers does more damage overall with more auto attacks and your ability itself. And I would say this would be a good opener at level 3. Unless you have a protector instead, like maybe a cannon too, then you can use cannon over the Gnar. Either one's up to you. And then for Malphite's reasoning, if you want to win streak early, a Sunfire will be really good because it does damage and it gives you some tank stats. And then once you hit level 4, I would suggest to put in a Gnar. Main reason why is because you don't really need crew synergy at the beginning, since it's not going to really do much for you. All it does is just gives you a little bit more health and a little bit more attack speed, which is actually really good for both of these units, Sivir and Malphite, since Malphite more HP, more tanky for him, and then Sivir more attack speed on her, the more damage she would do. So don't force a Shen at level 3 and you play this board. You're not going to be winning rounds. You'll be winning more rounds in the long run with having a protector or a sniper on the board. And when we hit level 4, this will be better. And I would suggest to not put in a Janna yet. Unless you want to save gold, then you can put in Janna instead. But frontlining Malphite, it's not going to make you win rounds. He'll just die and you have no more frontline. So I would prefer to have a Cannon 2 with a Malphite 2 as your frontline. And then when you hit level 5, then you can put in a Janna and switch out the cannon for the Shen. So you have now 3 crew and you have 2 sniper and 2 protector. By then you should have level 3 Sivir and a level 3 Malphite by then. So this means that every time you reroll from the crew, you're gonna get a lot more XP. So when you hit level 6, then you can throw out Ziggs. And then when you hit level 7, just look for any strong units you can find. For example, you could throw in like a Lulu and turn her into a Rammus to have extra tank, or you could throw like a Bastion unit, like for example like a Rel, or maybe a level 1 Swain's fine as well, just until you can find some sort of strategist unit, like for example a Rise, or you can find a J4. Either one's fine. Unless you high roll a TF, then you can use him as well, but it's going to be pretty low chance to find TF at level 7. So most of the time it'll be one of the Bastion units, or for example a strategist unit like Rise Rise or J4. And then by the time you do find TF, just take out the Gnar for TF. Unless you find TF early, like say for example you find TF but not the Rise, then you can keep the Gnar in until you find the other strategist unit. And then by the time you're level 9, by then you should be able to have a Rise by then. Just throw out a Braum, and that's basically about it, how to play the board. Next up, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite comps, which is Star Guardian. This comp is actually very powerful to play, and at first I had a misconception about how to make Star Guardian prismatic, because in order to make it prismatic, you have to spend around 20,000 mana, and they nerfed it today even more to 23,000. And the reason why is because Adaptive Helm on your mages will make you cast infinite. And like here I said, they nerfed it to 23,456 mana you have to spend. And the reason why they nerfed it even more than it already was is because of Ahri's Star Guardian. For every cast, you gain mana over 2 seconds. And if you have Adaptive Helm gives you 15% more mana from all sources. So this means that you gain a lot more mana in the long run if you build Adaptive Force with your mana casters on Star Guardian. And there's a lot to take in here because a lot of different Star Guardians give different stats, and all of the Star Guardian units get it. So for Rel, for example, you gain Shield with Rel, and then for Syndra, you gain ability power over a certain amount of time. Xayah, honestly, you can take her out later. If you have Emblem, you can take her out because all this is every third attack, it deals magic damage, which isn't too important in my opinion because most units take forever to auto attack anyways, so there's no point to have this. But if you don't have Emblem, just keep the Xayah. And then, like I said earlier, Ahri gives you mana every time you cast. Nico gives you more tank stats every time you cast, and Poppy heals if you lose 40% HP, you heal most of your HP back. And then Jinx gives you bonus attack speed and even more if you get a takedown. And then Seraphine is just basically an Infinity Force where she just gives you all stats. And if you get Emblem, which is actually really OP, you gain 12% more stat increase with all the Star Guardians. And for each Star Guardian you throw in, you gain more bonuses too overall. So this means that you'll gain a lot of mana if you play 8 Star Guardian with Adaptive Helm. Also, in order to start stacking for the mana spend, you have to play 8 Star Guardian on the board to get the prismatic version. Because if you don't, then it won't start stacking at all unless you have 8 in. Yes, emblems does count. So if you have an emblem in to get 8 Star Guardian, that also counts towards spending your mana to start stacking. So yeah, going back to the board, to play the full board, it's just 8 Star Guardian with a Kubuko. The reason why is because you get heavyweight for Poppy, and you also gain Mentor. The Mentor for Kubuko is you gain damage reduction. So this means that your tanks and your whole board in general last a little bit longer. The only tip I could give here is put AP items on Seraphine, put AD items on Jinx, and then put tank items on Poppy because she's a better tank than Nico and Rel. Unless they buff Nico super hard, then you can play Protector in instead and just make her the main tank. But for the most part, this is the default that we know for now of the second day of PvE. If you want to play the early game, it's pretty simple. It's just Syndra, and the first item sign should be an Adaptive Helm or a Shojin. Either one is fine, but Adaptive Helm is better because of the Star Guardian reasoning, so I would rather prefer to slam Adaptive Helm. And then whatever AP items you can slam, like Jewel Gauntlet, a Death Cap, or preferably a Guard Breaker with Jewel Gauntlet is the best. And then your main tank early game is going to be a Rel. If you want to start win streaking early, just build a Sunfire Cape, or you can build a Warmongs, either one's fine. And for this case, to play 8 Star Guardian, because we're going to be talking about the vertical style of playing this comp, you want to hit level 4 on stage 2-1 and throw out whatever you can. So I would like to throw out an Ezreal, because Ezreal is a prodigy with Syndra, so this makes her cast more. And then you just look for a +1 Bastion, like for example a Garen. During this time too, you can look to play maybe a Crystal Gambit, because you can gain a lot of econ. So you can play loose streak from here as well, or you can just keep winning and just keep cashing out over and over. So you can play like Janna with Vi, and you could probably take out these two if you want, and you could just do this. It's not strong enough to win, so I would say maybe level 5 is better to play, because you can have at least a Garen on the board, so you have more tank. The reason why Garen's more important than having an Ezreal for Prodigy is because Syndra should have a mana item by then, so not having that Prodigy is okay. So from here, you can keep playing either win streak or lose streak Crystal Gambit. It's up to you. But if you do lose streak, just keep continuing stack and just keep losing overall. But if you want to play win streak instead, you just keep cashing out over and over, so you have at least some extra gold for your econ. If not, you can just play the default, which is the Garen and the Ezreal. And then when you hit level 5, you can throw in either an Academy unit or you can throw in a Star Guardian. Either one you can find. Most of the time, you'll be most likely finding an Academy unit, so at least these units are a little bit stronger. But if you get lucky, maybe you might find a Xayah, that's fine as well, so you can have more Star Guardians in. And then over time, as you level up, you just throw out more Star Guardians. It's pretty simple. Just throw out Ahri when you level up to level 6, and then, or Nico at level 6, and you hit level 7, throw one or the other out. And then when you hit level 8, you just roll for your board of having a Jinx and a Poppy in. And since most of the time you're not going to find Seraphine at level 8, you can look for a Kubuko instead, and you have this as your main board. Just transfer the items over to maintain Poppy and transfer the items over from Syndra into Ahri, because Ahri is actually pretty strong as well at level 8. From here, if you're lucky enough to have Emblem, you can just put it on Kabuko and you can start stacking with this, and then fast 9, look for Seraphine. Unless you don't have Emblem, then hopefully this board is strong enough to carry you, and then when you hit level 9, or if you do high roll a Seraphine, Seraphine 1 is not worth to put items on. I would say RE2 is still better, so just wait till you have Seraphine 2, then you transfer the items over and the fruit to Seraphine, and then you have this as your board. Unless you have Star Guardian Emblem, then just take out the Zaya. And I would prefer to have either a Swain at level 9 because it gives you both Sorcerer with Ari and it also gives you Bastion with Rel. But if you want even a better unit out, if for whatever reason you have a level 2 Gwen, then you choose Gwen instead and just put Star Guardian on Gwen. And this is basically about it, how to play Star Guardian. The next comp we're going to talk about here is Wraith. And I like to play with KO reroll because when you hit level 9 of KO, she becomes very strong. And you also have a pretty good tank, which is Zac. But you can potentially play Varus as the main carry if you want to as well, if you want to fast 9. But at that point, you might as well play a different board over Vertical Wraith. So in my opinion, to play Vertical Wraith, KO is probably like the best for this board. And when you hit level 9, you can throw in whatever from here. You can throw in like a +1 protector, like maybe Rakan, or you can throw in a Seraphine, or if you want to, you can throw in a Lee Sin with either Juggernaut or Duelist, either one's fine. In the end, it doesn't really matter what you put at level 9. Like, yes, you're not gonna have protector on Cassante, but it doesn't really matter too much since Zax is just going to be your main tank overall. And I like to build Wizard's Rage Play a double Hodge on KO because this is how you used to build her back in the day. Since she is recycled, she used to be like exactly what she is now. But you could build other stuff, like instead of these two, you can build maybe potentially Gunblade so you can heal your board. And if you want extra damage on the board, you could do double Rage Blade, or you can do Giant Slayer. Either one's fine. Just remember that KO is an AP unit and she does not use mana at all because she is a special class. So this means that if you build Void Staff or if you build Archangel Staff, actually Archangel Staff would be okay. It's not a bad idea, but either one's fine. You could build full AP too if you want as well, like Death Cap, and Jewel Gauntlet is fine. As long as you have Gwynsu's Rage Blade, anything is okay afterwards. Just don't build Blue Buff, Adaptive Helm, or Shojin, basically the mana item, since it doesn't work on her. And I don't know if this works on her exactly, but Nashor's Tooth, I don't think it works on her. So if you want to try it out and let me know, that'd be great for me to know. But for the most part, I would say don't build this because I don't think it works. In order to play the opener, it's pretty simple. It's just KO, a Zac, and then Aatrox. For the most part, you'll be playing this. And then first item slam, Gwynsu's Rage Blade. If you want to win streak with a tank item, Sunfire is good, or whatever tank items you can find. And this is a very strong start since you get heavyweight on Zac, and you just have KO with Wraithen. And don't level at all until you 3-star both KO and Zac. But if you do hit level 4, just look for a Duelist unit, like potentially a GP because he's the next cheapest Duelist unit you can find. Or you could throw in Kai'Sa, either one's fine. Like, I prefer GP though, because GP is stronger than Kai'Sa. But you can't pick and choose, you just have to get what you can use. But for the most part, I would prefer GP because when you hit level 5, you can throw in a mecha if you want. So you can throw out Lucian at level 5 to stabilize, so you can summon the Galio on the board to help you fight. And then when you hit level 6, by then you hopefully can find a Malzahar. And then you can trade out Lucian for the other Wraith unit, which is Jhin. So you can have 4 Wraiths on the board, and then just switch out GP with Udyr whenever you can, because this allows you to get Juggernaut with Aatrox. And if you want to, you can 3-star Aatrox as well as you're rolling for KO and Zac. Either one's fine. If you don't get Aatrox 3-star, it's okay. And then by then, you don't have this Garen. When you hit level 7, you can literally throw whatever you want in. It doesn't really matter from this point. Like, if you want to, you can throw in a Lulu so you can transform her into Rammus, so you can have an extra tank on the board. And then when you hit level 8, you should be able to find a Cassante by then. And then you can put a +1 protector in, like for example, Rakan. Until you high roll maybe a Vars, then you could just take out the Rakan, and this is fine as well. And then you could just position like this, Malzahar near KO because he gives Magic Resist Shred. And in the front line, it doesn't really matter how you position it. I prefer to put Udyr here so he can stay alive and Aatrox 3 on the corner. And then level 9, just throw in whatever you want. You can throw in like a Zyra if you want to, because she's a good value unit. Throw in Seraphine. Could throw in Lee Sin and turn him to whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Or I guess for fun, you could just throw in a protector like Rakan, or you could throw in Janna. It doesn't really matter which one you throw in. But yeah, that's basically about it for Wraith. You can interchange with playing 4 Duelists if you want as well. If you can have the 6 Wraith, that's up to you. I just prefer playing 6 Wraith because I feel like it's stronger in the long run. Next up, we got is the Duelist reroll variation, where we have Kai'Sa and GP as the main carry. And the reason why this is actually pretty good is because Duelist gain you damage reduction. So this means that your Duelist units won't die as easy. And if you can, you could probably try to 3-star both Viego and Udyr. And there is a Viego carry variation, but this one's the easier one. And I'll show the Viego one later. This one's pretty good because you can have Aatrox with Darius to get the heavyweight in, and you also gain Supreme Cell with Kai'Sa because Kai'Sa needs it. At level 9, you can throw in whatever you want. If you want, you can throw in Yone because you can also summon a Galio at level 9, so you have extra frontline. And then you can change out, honestly, Ashe is not too useful, in my opinion, as a duelist. So you can trade out Ashe if you want for a Lee Sin, and then turn him into a duelist. That'll be really good as well to do. And I just put Aatrox down here, because it doesn't really matter for him. And you can play this style instead. The reason why I prefer the KO over Ashe, because when KO hits level 9, she's actually pretty strong compared to a no item Ashe, because Ashe needs items. And no item KO, I feel like in my opinion, is a little bit better. There is many different ways to play the early game. You can do the KO opener with Aatrox and Zac, because this is actually pretty strong. Or you can do the Kai'Sa opener with Kennen and a Malphite. This works as well. And then when you hit level 4, you can just throw in a +1 duelist like KO. This is fine. Or if you can't find a duelist, you can also throw a sorcerer in, which is like Lucian. Because when you hit level 5, you can throw in a GP. And then when you hit level 6, this is where you want to transition your board, because this is where you want to reroll. So you can switch out the Malphite with an Aatrox when you find a Darius, because you get heavyweight and you also gain a Supreme Cell still with the Darius instead of the Kennen with Kai'Sa. And then by then you should have KO. Until you can find an Udyr, it's better to keep the mech in, so you can have at least like extra frontline to stabilize until you find that Udyr for 4 duelists. But by the time you do find that Udyr for 4 duelists, or even Viego for 4 duelists, then you can just throw him out and then just take out the solution, so you can have at least this board with 4 duelists and pretty decent stat. But the Udyr is more worth it in the long run, since you get Mentor in over the Viego, and you also gain Juggernaut, because Aatrox is also a Juggernaut, and this could be your base board right here, since this is actually pretty strong. And the items I would recommend is IE or a Kraken Slam on either one for Kai'Sa. And then GP could be a BT or a Hog Slam. Either one's fine, but then you want to potentially build his core item, which is BT and Titans. And then Kai'Sa could have a Guard Breaker, and these are like probably her best items in my opinion. I think they're strong. We don't know yet what her BIS is, but this is what I think is strong. And you want to 3-star the Kai'Sa and the GP. And if you want to, or if you can 3-star Udyr as well. That would be pretty good to do. But most of the time you won't be able to 3-star him, because you want to fast 8 or 9 from this point, so you can play that 6 duelist as fast as you can. So when you hit level 7, then you can throw out Lucian again, or whatever mech unit you can find, like maybe even a Senna, just so you can stabilize at level 7 so you don't lose too much HP. And then when you hit level 8, you have to force the 6 duelist, because if you don't, you're just gonna die pretty quick. So you want to throw in that Viego over the mech and the Ashe over the Senna, and then you can have this as your board, and this kind of positioning is fine. Unless you want to play 6 duelists at level 7, that's fine as well. You can just take out the Aatrox and do this at level 7. So you can have your power spike already with 6 duelists and 2 Supreme Cell. That's if you find all these duelist units fast enough. And you can just throw out the Aatrox again at level 8. And then level 9, just throw in whatever value unit you can find, like for example Zyra, or a Yone to throw in that mech, so you can have a +1 unit on the board. And you can trade out Ashe for Lee Sin, like I said earlier, just turn him into duelist, and then you're good to go with this board. That's basically about it on how to play reroll duelist. The other version that I mentioned earlier, which is Viego reroll style, which I kind of prefer, I think is stronger, which is Viego with Udyr. Reasons why is because you have a really powerful AP unit here, and you have a very powerful tank unit that can play AD items as well. Potentially, you kind of want Bloodthirster on Udyr and then Hodge on Viego, because you want to prioritize Jewel Gauntlet on him so he can one-shot. And then I would prefer a QSS, but if you want a little bit more bulkiness, you can do Titans on him. Either one's fine. And for Udyr's case, you can do Titans with Asterax is actually really good on him. Unless you want to play full tank Udyr, that's fine as well. You can do like Steadfast with Sunfire and a Warmonks. This is fine. And you want to play this board at level 7 angle. So this means that you have to reroll at 7. And the board you want to do that for 7 is all the duelist units with KO, GP, Kai'Sa, and an Ashe. Hopefully you can hit Ashe at level 7. If you can't, it's fine. You can look for whatever. Because you kind of have to find another 4-cost unit as well, which is going to be a Set. And this is actually pretty good because you have pretty good synergies here. You have Juggernaut with Set, and you also have Soul Fighter because of Set. So if you cannot find Set, you can find a substitute. Like for example, you could throw in a Neferi. She also gives Juggernaut and Soul Fighter. So you can use her as a replacement until you find Set. And for Ashe's case, there's really no substitute, and there's really nothing else you can play as a +1 here. So just look for whatever unit you can find with Ashe, and then over time, you can just play whatever value units you can find over time. And that is it for the Viego reroll style. The next comp we got is Academy, and personally, I like to play with 4 Prodigy at level 9 because it makes Yuumi cast more. But if you want to play level 8 version, you just take out the 2 Prodigies and just throw out a Rise. This works as well because you get like other synergies, which is Mentor to get more mana for Yuumi. And you get Executioner with Katarina, which doesn't really matter too much in my opinion. In order to get Prismatic version of Academy, you're gonna need a lot of items. So basically just look for a lot of item augments, just put whatever items on the board, and you basically just win out. In order to play the early game, it's pretty simple. It's just Ezreal, Garen, and if you can find an Academy unit like Katarina or Rakan, that's great. you can play either or. Most of the time, I prefer Katarina just for the extra DPS. And then because you want to be playing from a win streak angle, you level up, throwing a bashy units like Aurel, so Garen could be even tankier. And the items I like to slam here is if you have 80 items for whatever reason, you could do that with Ezreal, like slamming IE on him. Then you can play potentially Caitlyn carry, which is okay to do, but Yuumi carry is better in the long run, so it would be better just to have AP items such as either Shojin mana item, or you can do Adaptive Helm, or you can do a blue buff. Either one's fine, and just whatever AP items you can find, like Jewel Gauntlet or a Death Cap, either one's great. It's just as long as you have mana item with AP item. And then Garen could use whatever tank items. If you want, you put Sunfire to win streak, since Sunfire is strong early. And then when you hit level 5 from here, just look for a Prodigy unit so you can gain more mana on Ezreal, so potentially like a Syndra, so you can have a lot of mana to keep casting with Ezreal. The trick is, if you are going to be playing Prodigy, having Adaptive Helm would help a lot because it increases your mana even more, since this item gives you more mana from all resources. And the good thing about this too, you also get Star Guardian, so it makes at least the Rel a little bit tankier, and it'll make Syndra do a little bit more damage. And then when you hit level 6, you could just look for whatever unit you can fill. If you have Katarina, you can potentially throw in like a Senna, so you can have that Executioner in. Or if you have Rakan instead, just look for any protector unit, like potentially a Janna. Either or is fine. And you may see here that you can also play Crystal Gambit if you want to as well. So you can drop 3 Academy and you can play Loose Streak with Crystal Gambit on stage 3, so you can have a lot of resources. That's totally up to you, but for the most part, I would rather just play Academy at level 6 so I can keep win streaking. And then you're not gonna stay level 7 for too long, so you can throw in whatever. But by then you should have at least like 5 Academy at 7, which is like Katarina with Caitlyn. So either one is fine to do here. And then when you hit level 8, then you want to roll for your board, which is having a main tank on Leona. So transfer whatever you had on Garen into Leona, and then your main carry is going to be a Yuumi, and you just take out the Syndra and you just transfer over whatever you had on Ezreal into Yuumi. And then for this board, you just take out the Rel and just throw in a Rise for extra stat. And most likely you would want to have over the Caitlyn a Jace, so you have extra frontline with Katarina, and you also get Executioner with Rise. And that's basically about it for this board. And when you hit level 9, then you can just take out Rise if you want to, so you can put in like 4 Prodigy, so you can have more mana on the board. With the Seraphine and Malzahar, that's totally up to you. But if you want to keep the Ryzen over doing 4 Prodigy, you put in +1 unit, like for example a Zyra. This is fine to do. Or you could throw in J4 so you can get Strategist in, and he's a really good frontline overall. And the reason why Ryze is pretty good is because he's also a mentor, because he also gives you more mana for every time you attack. So he grants you 2 more bonus mana. But that's basically about it for Academy. It's just throw out whatever Academy is you can find, and then just potentially have a bunch of items so you can win out. Next up we got is the Unstoppable Force, which is Volibear Edgelord. This comp is actually pretty fun to play because you see Volibear just staying alive forever and just mowing everything down. And yes, you have to use a lot of legendary units like Yone and Braum, but we can use substitutes. Hey, you can't really substitute Yone, but we can use substitutes, and I can show you how to play it over time. There's 3 different type of openers you can do. Because we're playing a frontline carry, you can do Garen with Ezreal and have a Rel in with a Syndra at level 4, or you could do Academy unit like Katarina. So basically it's like the same like last comp-ish, where we have Academy opener. The reason why is because BT on Garen is actually pretty good, and it should be the first item you should be slamming if you want to play the Edgelord comp with Luchador. Another opener we can do here is having a Neferi in instead, and we play with other units such as Aatrox, and here you could do a Mecha opener with GP and Lucian, so you can summon that Garen on the field, or I mean Galio, my bad. But I actually prefer a different style, which is the Soul Fighter, so you can have the Callista in, and you have the other Juggernaut, which is Aatrox, and hopefully potentially Katarina to get that Executioner in. And then whatever your Samara items is, like for example IE, you can just put it on Callista, which is fine to do. And then over time you just play your strongest board from here. Like you could potentially play just vertical Soul Fighter if you want to, because you only need 4 of them. But yeah, just do whatever you can with this opener. The main opener you want to do is to have Luchador opener with the Gnar, and Gnar can hold the Samara items with a Mundo for that Juggernaut on the field, and you put items. If you don't have Neferi 2, just put items on Mundo instead. But if you do have Neferi 2, I would prefer putting items on Neferi first. And just a +1 sniper, like for example, a Sivir is fine. And this setup would be a lot better to play the potential Volibear Edgelord style. When you hit level 5, you could throw in an Aatrox if you want for the extra Juggernaut on the board. Or you can throw in a Yasuo in so you can have the Mentor in with extra bonus attack speed on the board. Either one's fine. But the main thing to know here is by the time you have Mundo 2, you want to transfer the item to Mundo no matter what, because he's Luchador with Gnar, so he has more strength on the board than he would with Neferi. Or you can play potentially +1 Soul Fighter unit, such as Xin Zhao. Either one's fine. And then when you hit level 6, if you do somehow find a Yasuo, you could probably find most likely a Xayah, but if not, then you could just throw in a Shen instead, because he's Bastion with a Xin Zhao. So you may notice there's a lot of like interchanges, like you just mix and match with a lot of different units. Just play your strongest board up until you can hit level 8. And then level 7 doesn't really matter here because you're not going to play for too long. So potentially maybe it could be that Yasuo that I was mentioning earlier. And then when you hit level 8, you want to transition your whole board. So I'm going to show the budget version, which consists of having a Samira, just transfer the items over from Gnar to Samira. And then as we're rolling down, hopefully you get your Volley Bear, transfer the Mundo items to Volley Bear. And we take out the Sivir and the Gnar. We could throw in Gnar later, but there's no point to have 3 Luchadors. And then we could just throw in a set. Even though it's 3 Juggernaut, this is fine because we get 4 Soul Fighter for Samira. And this should be decently strong enough to maybe progress you all the way up to level 9 because we have a lot of frontline and Volley Bear is pretty strong. And Samira is pretty decent backline. By the time we do hit level 9, then we want to change out some units where we add in Yone, take out the Neferi, and throw in the Gnar, and hopefully by then we find Braum over the Xin Zhao. And then we change out the set for the Xayah. And this is how you play the board, and you want to position in something like this. This should be fine. So now we have 6 Edgelord for Luchador for Volley Bear to be super strong. This board is actually pretty fun to play. You can see Volley Bear just never die basically and just kill everything. For the last comp we're going to be talking about here is Soul Fighter. And this comp is just literally a Soul Fighter with a +1 Edgelord like Yone. If you can't find Yone, you can use a different unit like Yasuo instead because it also gives you a mentor. And Yasuo's mentor gives you more attack speed, so it kind of helps Samira to try to cast even more. But this comp is actually really easy. The opener is just Kalista with a Neferi opener, and then you just throw in Aatrox with a Katarina. If you can't find Katarina, just use whatever you can find. But Katarina will be the opener for most cases because Kalista and Katarina are executioner. And the items you want to prioritize is having IE on Kalista to give to Samira later. And if you want to win streak, Sunfire on Neferi is the best. And just over time, you just throw in Soul Fighter units. That's basically about it. It's pretty easy. It's just look for whatever Soul Fighters you can find, like Xin Zhao, a Lux, Viego, and then when you hit level 8, then you want to roll for your board, which is having the Samira in, and you just want to reposition your board a little bit, find the set, and then put the item on to set over the Neferi, take out the Katarina, and potentially have the Yasuo. And this is your budget version for level 8. If you want to take it a step further and have a little bit more stats on the board, you could just take out the Viego and put in the Swain because it gives you Sorcerer with Lux and also gives you Bastion with Xin Zhao. So this board should be strong enough. With 6 Soul Fighter to all the way to level 9, then you can look for your legendary units like Gwen. The Swain for the +1 Soul Fighter you would need for 8 Soul Fighter. And then the prismatic version is kind of hard. You kind of need the emblem of Soul Fighter because if you don't, then you can't really get the prismatic, which is you have to deal 99 player damage total to activate its prismatic version, which should basically win you out the game. And you put the emblem on Yasuo or Yone, it doesn't really matter who. But yeah, that's basically about it for this comp. It's actually really easy to play. And that is it for all the vertical comps I can explain to you guys at the current time of PvE, since it's only been like the second day it's been out. I know I missed a couple of comps, like for example, Mentor and potentially Crystal Gambit, but Crystal Gambit's pretty easy. You just gotta get the emblem, lose streak, then cash out, then you just win game. But yeah, if you have any questions about any of the comps that I explained in this video, just let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll try to answer to the best of my capabilities. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.